Hi everyone, my name is Charlie and today I have the Christmas Carol book tag. This tag was created by Lauren of Lauren Wade and I was tagged by nobody. Lauren created this video and in it I believe she does state that this would be good for people participating in Vlogmas, and I have been waiting for today to record this video. Today is Sunday the 22nd of December, and I believe that this evening the latest adaptation of A Christmas Carol will air on BBC One. Well, the first episode is running for the next 2 nights after this one as well. And this video will be going up on the 23rd of December. I don't know whether I'm going to like this adaptation, but A Christmas Carol is one of my favourite stories out there. It is a story that I have reread and reread since being a teenager. Previously, I'd watched I don't know how many adaptations, and so it seems fitting for me to do this tag now. There are 9 prompts, and I'm going to say it now, I'm not going to be tagging anyone at the end of this video because of how close we are to Christmas, and it's just too much pressure to put on somebody. Although if you want to be tagged and do this next year and save it for next December, feel free. Emily of Novel Novels, I'm looking at you. I know you're probably planning that far ahead right now. Anyway, I suppose we best get on with the questions. The first prompt is The Ghost of Christmas Past. This is a book that is a childhood favourite. I am going to mention The Bed and Breakfast Star by Jacqueline Wilson. I was first introduced to Jacqueline Wilson's work when I was in year 4. So I don't know how old I was, maybe 8 going on 9. I thoroughly enjoyed The Bed and Breakfast Star. And that used to be a time when every Saturday my older brother would walk to the late shop and I would sometimes go with him. One Saturday I happened to discover that they had some rather cheap books on the bottom shelf, and I just happened to have enough pocket money that day, and so I purchased The Bed and Breakfast Star from the late shop, having only read it quite recently from school. I read it that night, and similar to how Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire had been a book that I reread a lot because I didn't have many books, I would reread this book as a quick read every weekend. I used to share a bedroom with my younger brother and my other older brother, and when I was that age I still slept with the light on. But when my brother came, he had the light off, and so my mum would leave the landing light on and I'd be lying in bed holding The Bed and Breakfast Star up like this so that I could read it. And then as the year went on I began to wonder why I couldn't see as well and had to get glasses. That's the book. I read The Bed and Breakfast Star. I found it funny. There were jokes in there I never understood, and when I went, I've never revisited it as an adult because I worried that should I revisit it now, it would be marred by me not being a child anymore. So I look back on it fondly. I like to keep that nostalgia there. It's something I will never revisit, but that definitely was one of my favourites, and I just, for some reason, I felt some sort of affinity with Elsa. Then we have question 2, The Ghost of Christmas Present, a recent book that you think will become one of your all-time favourites. For this, I have gone with The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. I read this back at the start of July, and I know that a lot of people have issues with this book. Indeed, that has gone on into the sequel, and admittedly I had some issues with the Dragon Republic myself. However, I can see where the author's coming from throughout it all, and whilst I was reading it, I could see these links to bits of mythology, and for whatever reason, I read this and I also listened to the audiobook. Both experiences were extremely different, but extremely impactful in their own ways, and I thoroughly recommend this. I think it's a bit trashy. That's not me being mean about it in any way. I wanted to, like, highlight a book for the first time. I got sticky notes that my friend gave me that I thought about sticking in here just because there were so many moments that I thought it was linking back to certain books that I'd read previously, and I liked that. I also liked the book as a whole, and it's, you know, it's incredibly fast-paced and it's incredibly dark in parts. And from the beginning of this novel you don't expect what you get in the end, but I feel like I could go on and revisit this book and enjoy it and love it forever. I look forward to the next book. I believe, is it a trilogy? I'm hoping that it's just 3 books, but I could read more. I think that it's really a great book, and the only reason I don't have the sequel is because I'm waiting for it in paperback, because I can't find it in the Poppy War in hardback, and I like them to match on my shelves. The Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come, a book coming out next year that you're most excited about. Right, I'm going for a bit of shameless self-promotion here, so if you don't want to hear that, you can skip ahead. But the book that I'm most looking forward to next year, because I don't take a look at publisher lists by anyone else, is An Heir to Murder by me. It comes out on the 12th of February 2020. It's my first foray into cozy crime, and I think that you might just enjoy it a little bit. And yeah, that is me blowing my own trumpet, but I think that with all the help that I've had with this book, it might just be one of my best. Next, we have question 4, Bar Humbug, a book that everyone else loves, you just can't stand. I just chose to go with one that I have tried and tried to get through and I know isn't for me, and that is Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. There is no amount of reading that is ever going to make me enjoy that book. I'm able to realise what Emily Bronte was trying to get at it, and I understand why everybody else has the views that they have and why they love it, but it's definitely not a book that I enjoy. I don't get on with the characters, I don't get on with the story, I don't get on with the way of writing. I appreciate the different narrative voices throughout, and I think that that's well done and ahead of its time really, but otherwise I'm sorry Miss Bronte, but goodbye. Next we have question 5, Bob Cratchit, an old dependable that you always recommend. The Trouble with Goats and Sheep by Joanna Cannon. I have only had one person read this book upon my recommendation who didn't enjoy it. I adore this book. In fact, I christened it my favourite book of the last 4 years. The Trouble with Goats and Sheep follows 2 young girls, Grace and Tilly, after Mrs. Creasy goes missing, and they believe that by finding Jesus, they're going to be able to find Mrs. Creasy. It's set in 1976 during that summer heatwave that has been very impactful to British culture because there are a lot of books set during that time period. And I thoroughly recommend this. There are mystery elements, there's great British humour in here. Joanna Cannon is able to provide insight into the psyche of her characters, and it is quite awesome really. Then we have 6, Tiny Tim, an underhyped book that you think deserves more love. For this, I've gone with Stardust by Neil Gaiman. I have now read this book a couple of times, a few times, I don't know how many times I've read this book, and each time I pick more up and I recognise more aspects of classical storytelling in here and classical fable and fairy tales all intermingled into this one story, and I adore it. Honestly, it's very much like a fantastical pastiche. Yes, I read it after seeing the film and I enjoy them both in their own right. I'm putting this here because so many people dislike this book, and whilst that's great for me because I have a book that nobody else seems to enjoy, great stuff. Admittedly, the first time I read it, I did find it a bit slow moving, but I read it when I was a teenager, and every time I go back, like I say, I discover more. And I don't want to be that person who says to people to stick with books because sometimes books just aren't for you, but sometimes I wonder whether revisiting them later on might give you a different opinion. But either way, Stardust. Next we have Today, Why It's Christmas Day. What's a book that always gets you in the mood for Christmas, apart from A Christmas Carol? So obviously that would be the only answer. As has been mentioned a lot during Vlogmas, I seem to wind down reading during November and December, and so it's not necessarily Christmas books or any sort of book that gets me in the mood for Christmas. And there have been books previously that I have read that I have thought, oh, this would be good to revisit at Christmas time, and then I've never done it because I don't like to really read Christmassy books at Christmas. It seems like I'm always then comparing my Christmas to how they should be in literature. And honestly, not gonna lie, I haven't read much this month at all. I focused on Christmas and I have flaming enjoyed the season a lot more than if I'd been trying to force myself to read books, because that's just who I am. I much prefer to watch Christmas movies to get me into the Christmas spirit, or listen to Christmas music, or just chat to people and spend time with people rather than fictional folk who aren't really giving me any sort of conversation, and they're showing me the author's ideal of Christmas rather than what I kind of like about the season. And then we have question 8, The Muppet Christmas Carol, your favourite film adaptation of a book. Here, I am going against the grain, and I am going to say the Percy Jackson films, specifically The Lightning Thief, because I saw that before I read the book. I know that there are so many fans of Percy Jackson who don't like those first two films. I know that the author himself abhors those films, and when I eventually got round to reading the book, the only reason I could think that Rick Riordan would hate the Percy Jackson film so much is because they actually gave his books some sort of plot and some sort of action and some sort of driving force that the narrative was otherwise missing. Yes, I'll agree, they might have tried to turn the books into some sort of Harry Potter thing that they weren't, but I found them more action-packed and more concise, and I found them a bit less wishy-washy than I did the books. As I say, question 9 would be to tag some people, but I'm not going to be doing that because it's Christmas and you have enough to be going on with without me adding more pressure to you to go out and do a tag. However, I look forward to seeing your videos should you eventually do this tag, and if you've done this tag already and I haven't watched it and I haven't commented, then let me know and I will come along, watch your video, comment, but you know, it's Christmas. We have stuff to be getting on with, stuff to be doing. Turkeys to cook, people to feed, it's all gravy really. What are some of your favourite Christmas reads? What are you looking forward to in 2020, 2020? I've still not figured out what I'm going to say yet. Book from your childhood. Answer these questions in the comments below if you don't want to do this tag, or do this tag. I am not fussed, really. I hope that you've enjoyed this video, and until next time, that is all.